holiday cash? Here's where to get it. MyBookie.ag is the place to score serious cash on your sports predictions. There are a lot of football, basketball, and hockey games you can score big every day. Man up, play like the pros. The money line, side, or total, MyBookie.ag is your hookup for all your betting with all the lines and super fast payouts. Join now and MyBookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code MM50 to activate the order. Don't leave the money on the table. MyBookie.ag, promo code MM50, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
We're rolling into the final hour of the show on Golic and Wingo. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic here with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. As always, we are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We have Paul Finebaum coming up in just a few minutes. Major League Baseball Commissioner Paul Manfred will join us Rob Manfred, yes. At the bottom of the hour. I just conflated. I almost said Rob Finebaum and Paul Manfred.
There you go. You mixed the two.
That's an interesting person.
That
if you
would
could put those two together, that would be fascinating.
That would be. You know, we were just talking about the in Seattle, boa constrictor that was found in a toilet of an apartment, and just how we both are afraid of snakes.
Terrified.
We both, somebody told us what the rhyme was about red and black or red and yellow.
Red touches
and
black, safe
whatever.
for Jack, red
but
and yellow.
What about, not every snake is red and or black or whatever the colors are. Now, I don't know what
then
to believe.
Just run.
Joey tweets in, rounded head and rounded pupils, snake isn't venomous. Diamond-shaped head and slitted pupils, it's venomous. Why am I getting close enough to look at his pupils?
Thank you.
Are you kidding me? Hey, snake, hold still.
Yeah.
Don't bite me while I lean in to look at your pupils.
Let me get a closer look at the smallest things possible on your body.
Oh, my gosh.
I have a little story about that. I was once a camp counselor in the woods. And, there were snakes everywhere.
So you had to be counted on to be the man in the situation.
Mistake number one
Boy,
for these
you're
kids.
Not kidding.
How they all survived, I
kidding.
don't know.
Yeah.
Okay? So it was in this very wooded area in the South, and my nickname was Snake because they all knew I was terrified of snakes. So I'm leading the kids one day from the tent to the mess hall, and standing in front of me is like a 6-foot copperhead. Now, I'm smart enough to know that a copperhead is poisonous.
Yes.
So I'm like, holy crap, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I actually found a rock, got up as close as I could, tossed the rock on the snake, killed the snake, and thus saved the children. So that was my one great moment. And at the end of camp, they had actually skinned the snake skin and gave it to me mounted.
Really?
Yeah. And then afterwards, they said, dude, you were way too close to that snake when you dropped that rock.
Yeah.
But my paternal instincts took over at that young age, and I unknowingly put myself at great harm's way.
Did you pee yourself?
Oh, like 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. But I'm terrified of snakes.
Hate them.
They are the worst.
Absolutely. I couldn't even fathom going into the bathroom because who really looks before you go into the bathroom
there it is.
If there's a snake in there?
Yeah, and let me open this just to make sure that there's nothing like an alligator or a baby croc that could kill me when I'm using this. Which brings me back to this point, which started this. You are going to South Africa in March, and you are contemplating with your daughter Sydney free diving, not in the cage. You're going to do the cage.
Going to do the cage for sure.
Potentially free diving.
Potentially.
With a shark, a great white shark, outside of an orca.
Well, listen,
the apex predator of the planet.
I'm not like ordering a great white shark.
They're there. Trust me.
I know they are, but whatever shark is down there, it's not like I'm going to only go down there if a 20-foot great white is down there.
They're
20
there.
feet now.
But my point being, I would like to know. You can tweet us because we have another Twitter segment coming up later. What is the craziest thing you would do on vacation? Like I rappelled off a building. You're gonna free dive with white sharks.
Yes.
So I'll miss you. But what will like free base jumping, or bungee jumping,
skydiving.
Have you ever bungee jumped?
I bungee jumped. Yes.
How was that?
It was the hardest part is actually diving off a perfectly good.
Yes, exactly.
No, I get it. And I actually had to do it twice because it was being filmed for something. And as I went down and was being, I was kind of.
They missed it?
The guy with the camera said, I missed it. You have to do it again.
And at that point, you say, tough.
Yeah.
You get one of these.
So I did that. Sydney skydive. You ever went skydiving?
No, but I kind of want to because I'm terrified of heights.
I do as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to try that. I've been zip line. Chris and I did zip lining. Actually, with the Perianos.
Yeah.
So we've done that.
The Perianos are everywhere.
They seem to be.
Okay.
Whitewater rafting.
Yeah. That's not the same, though.
Well, it depends on if you're going,
that get there.
What white water you're going through, how rough it is.
I would still say the risk on the other things would be a little greater. But, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
So, just curiosity, at Golic and Wingo, let us know what's the craziest thing you have done or would do on vacation. And you mentioned bungee jumping and diving off into the abyss. What a perfect time to bring in Paul Finebaum.
There you go.
From the
Paul
Finebaum
taker.
Show, SEC Network, brought to you by Goodyear, tires as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff. And, Paul, it certainly seems like your alma mater, Tennessee, is diving into a strange abyss now. We've talked about this a lot over the last couple of days. I guess my question to you is, where do we go from here? Where does Tennessee go to sort of rectify this situation?
Well, Trey, I think the most important thing Tennessee did was not immediately just hire someone off the yellow pages, just act like they know what they're doing. It's pretty obvious they don't know what they're doing. So I think pausing is a good idea. I heard Chris Lowe earlier, and I don't know why schools always resort to the same old, meaning let's find somebody with Tennessee ties. I mean, there aren't very many people with Tennessee ties unless you can convince Peyton Manning to suddenly become a head coach. Just going out and getting T. Martin, who has never even been seriously considered for a head coaching job, I don't think makes a lot of sense. He went to school there. Yeah, he won a national championship there, but is he really your answer? I mean, there are a lot of really good coaches out there. So you just take a deep breath. You see what's available. You see if you can actually get anyone legitimate to take an offer, which seems to be in doubt right now, and that's where they are.
Are they behind also the other teams, Paul? Are they behind in Arkansas, Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State because of this, or in conjunction with this, to where names that are going to be bantered about in all these places will have Tennessee lower on their list?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, to me, Tennessee is still, Mike, a significantly better job. Yeah, I mean, it's taken one of the worst beatings I have ever seen. In covering this sport, you'd have to. I don't think you can find a situation quite like this when you have a legitimate head coach about to jump on a plane and fly to Knoxville to be introduced, and a bunch of angry people decide he's not good enough. And by the way, I mean, what is I asked some Tennessee fans yesterday on our show, so who is your alternative? And they don't have one. I mean, yeah, you can go out and find some big names that are out of coaching. Les Miles has won a national championship. He doesn't have a job right now. Lane Kiffin is in coaching, and quite frankly, is a very attractive coach. Now, can you bring him back to a place where he left and the fans revolted against him? They burned him in effigy. You probably could, and it wouldn't be as big a deal considering what happened on Sunday night. But but you can find a coach. Mike Norvell at Memphis certainly is a legitimate answer. I know they tried to get Campbell. He's off the table now at Iowa State. So if you think carefully and cautiously, there are good alternatives out there, but just don't rush into it.
That would be the ultimate turn of events if somehow out of all of this, Lane Kiffin, who, as you said, one of the ugliest departures of all time,
absolutely,
finds his way back into Knoxville.
He's enjoying tweeting about this as well.
Well, he tends to tweet about whatever he wants to tweet about. Let's be clear about that. Okay, so let's move on from Tennessee, because that is obviously a still fluid situation, and it's going to sort itself out. It may take some time. But, the Kevin Sumlin situation at Texas A&M is interesting. It looks like Jimbo Fisher may be headed there. But what about Kevin Sumlin? What's his future? Where might he be headed?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, he would also be a rather attractive coach, all things considered. Yeah, I mean, his name has been linked to other jobs. Arizona State is certainly a possibility. I think that may be the best as we speak. But back to Jimbo Fisher, I mean, this name has been lurking out there for months, and a lot of people just could not conceive, Trey and Mike, of him leaving Florida State. But I think that's going to happen. Otherwise, he could have put this one to bed yesterday morning in that interview. He didn't, because you come to a point in the road where relationships begin to have seen better days, and I think that's where he is. He's 4 years removed from a national championship, 3 years removed from a college football playoff, and there has been a dramatic paradigm shift in the ACC. Suddenly, Miami is very good. Clemson is about to go to its third consecutive playoff. So, where does Jimbo Fisher take this program? I think the smart move for him would be to get out of there.
As far as Scott Frost over at UCF, I mean, he's got to know he's undefeated. He has no shot of the Final Four. And the only shot they would have, a team like that, is when they go to 8, and who knows when that's going to happen. So as he bangs his head on that glass ceiling right now, would you be stunned if he doesn't take the Nebraska job, his alma mater?
Probably not, based on what we've seen lately. I've talked to friends in Florida who really believe he wants to stay there, and you can't blame him. I mean, he's got a terrific program, and if you watched the game the other day, I mean, that was the biggest game in the state last weekend, far outdrawing in terms of interest the Florida State game. But it's hard for me to believe that he can turn down his alma mater. You don't get that opportunity very many times. You have his former coach out there, Tom Osborne, I'm sure, whispering in his ear, come home, and he would come back as a conquering hero. So my sense is, I don't know Scott that well, but I know he has tried to avoid this subject for as long as we've been talking to him this year. I sense he will go. Otherwise, Nebraska could have moved pretty quickly and hired a coach. They knew that Mike Riley was going to be out of there for some time.
Well, especially when you hear Scott Frost say he would be hurt.
Yeah.
If Nebraska didn't consider him. Paul Finebaum with us from the Paul Finebaum Show and SEC Network. Paul, let me just throw one name out there that hasn't gotten a lot of discussion, and he's an interesting guy, and he's done a good job, and there's some things about him that may rub people the wrong way, but what about a guy like Mike Leach leaving Washington State?
I mean, he's a tremendous coach, but you're right. I mean, where does he fit? I mean, he is the most irreverent coach in the game right now. And I think there are some places that he might work. His name was linked a couple of weeks ago to Ole Miss, which of course filled that position with a very creative hire by making the interim coach the head coach. Another name, another Mike, is Mike Gundy. He turned down Tennessee 4 years ago. The question is, could he coexist with this current athletic director there? Of course, I'm not sure how long the athletic director will be at Tennessee, but I think they're both very attractive coaches, but both have often been at odds with the administration. Gundy far more than Mike Leach.
All right, Paul, let's go on the field here, or I should say into the committee room, which they're going to be doing tonight. We all kind of assume that in whatever order, Clemson, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Auburn are going to be the four tonight, though there are some, Paul, that are saying they think Alabama will still be in the top four. Where do you think they are tonight?
I think Alabama could be as low as 6, no higher than 5, and certainly you're right. When Clemson lost earlier in the season, they didn't fall very, very much. I think it's just the timing of Alabama's loss and also just how inept Alabama looked. I mean, I said something the other day that I didn't think I would ever say, that Nick Saban was out-coached. I mean, how many times have you guys seen that happen? And I think that will weigh heavily on the committee's mind. To me, another fascinating part of this committee is you have the Clemson athletic director on this committee. You also have the Ohio State athletic director. So there's going to be a lot of moving in and out of the room tonight, and especially over the weekend when the final poll comes out. But, yeah, I mean, I believe Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the country. The committee has had them at 1 or 2 all year long. Yes, they lost by 12 points, but still they lost in one of the most difficult arenas that you can find in college football. I don't know anyone who could have won at Auburn either 3 weeks ago when Georgia lost there as number 1 and last Saturday when Alabama did.
Well, look, they've been great, especially, like you said, the last 3 weeks. But the issue, it seems to be, is there a path for Alabama should Ohio State take down Wisconsin? The 538, the projector here at ESPN.com has this great tool where you can go across and say, okay, these teams win. It shows you the odds. And if you have that scenario, it looks like there's a slight chance that Ohio State, if they beat Wisconsin, might have a better chance of getting into that Final Four than Alabama.
Trey, to me, Ohio State, assuming it wins, and it's favored by a touchdown, is in the identical position as Penn State a year ago. Yes, they would win the Big Ten, which is an important league, no doubt. But they have a very ugly loss to contend with. Yeah, they've got the metrics on the wins, but last year Penn State could not get over a beatdown at Ann Arbor. And I don't know how Ohio State overcomes losing by 31 against Iowa. To me, that is almost a disqualifier. And you know, they metric-wise, they beat Alabama. And you know, frankly, I think some of this is just ridiculous when you start comparing. Well, one has a win over the number 16 and the other one over the number 24 team. Certainly, Ohio State would have a better number 1 win over Wisconsin than Alabama doesn't have that, primarily because Florida State went in the tank. I thought it was a great win back in early September when they beat the number 3 team in the country, but nobody thinks it is any longer. But to me, I would vote for Alabama over Ohio State. And the other path is pretty obvious. It's TCU beating Oklahoma. That is a better path for them. Those are the only 2 paths, though. But if Wisconsin wins and Oklahoma wins, then Alabama will be watching this at home.
Yep, absolutely. It is part of your criteria, because it is for me. I mean, there's a lot of criteria, but at some point, if it's close and you're looking at it, at some point I just say, because I've watched these teams and I know you have as well, who do you think is better? I mean, right? The eye test?
Mike, I don't know how else you do it on the final week. Now, I sit here every Tuesday night and find some fault with this committee because they can be annoying, especially when the committee chairman comes out and he sounds like he's at a bureaucratic press conference in Washington representing the FTC or something. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about half the time. But on the final vote, I mean, to me, you have to look at that. You have to think, okay, now these teams are about to play in the college football playoff. Let's quit trying to figure out, if they beat the number 35 team or the number 50 team. And Alabama is going to win that conversation. It doesn't matter that Nick Saban is the coach, because on the other side, Urban Meyer is on the same level with Nick Saban. But I just look at the eye test and I look at the best and most embarrassing moment. And to me, the best moment for Ohio State, which would be a win over Wisconsin, doesn't wash away the ugliness of losing by 31. And that wasn't on the first weekend. That was toward the end of the season. And to me, that will cost them if this committee does its job.
Paul Finebaum with us again. The Paul Finebaum Show weekdays on Sirius XM Channel 81 and the College Football Playoff Top 25 presented by AT&T tonight at 7 Eastern on ESPN and the ESPN app. And after the results are revealed, tune in to the College Football Rankings Reaction Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Jamel Hill, El Duncan, and Mike Golic Jr. along with Jason Fitz. Paul, the wild card scenario, the chaos scenario is probably this. Because, look, winner of ACC is going to get in, winner of the SEC Championship is going to get in. But let's say that both Wisconsin and TCU win. Then what happens?
Wow.
I mean, that's the one that blows everything up, right?
I think so. And then you argue, I think then it looks like Alabama and Ohio State. That's how I would go because to me Oklahoma would be disqualified with 2 losses, and Wisconsin. I think they're barely hanging on, even undefeated.
Yeah.
So with 1 loss, I'm wiping them off. And I hear fans say there's no way you can put 2 from the same conference. I mean, that's not really what this is about. And it's also not about making it look good for television. Yes, ESPN is heavily involved, but ESPN is not at the table in that room. And I frankly don't think former coaches and athletic directors and administrators are really hung up on whether this game gets a 23 rating or a 25 rating. I mean, that's not what they're employed to do. So I think it would be Ohio State and Alabama.
All right, Paul, now the more interesting questions. You ever swim with sharks?
I don't really swim much. I used to swim. I was on a swimming team as a kid, but I would stay away from sharks at all costs.
Do you like snakes?
No, there's not much I do like.
Well, okay, now the question, what do you like? That's the next possible question there.
Well, I like doing the show. I'll say that. As far as I am pretty boring guy. You can just take a look at me. You were talking about vacations a minute ago. I mean that's I go on vacation to have fun because in real life I wear this face of scorn and seriousness. Although I think Golic has gotten to know me a little bit better. He knows I'm not quite as serious as I may appear on television.
Completely agree with that. That's why I'm asking you some of these questions. The last one I'll go with. What would you eat first? Day-old donuts, day-old pizza, day-old Chinese food, day-old spaghetti?
I'm probably pizza. Believe it or not, is one of my favorite foods. I'm not a donut eater, so I would probably eat pizza out of a garbage can.
Oh, there you go.
See.
That's news right there. I like that.
Well, I think we have to ask this one last question, though.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Golic had to wear the turnover chain, as did you, Paul. Who wore it better, you or Golic?
I don't think there's any question that I wore it better. I also wore it first, and I think that matters. And and I did not like putting it on, but I went crazy, as you guys probably saw on SportsCenter that Sunday morning. I'm not sure what happened. I went back to to high school prom mode. I was in another world listening to music from the 70s.
Yeah, it all went downhill when you started to dance. Booger left the set.
Or it went uphill.
Yeah.
But if I had just put it on, it would have been pretty boring. Without the dancing, it wouldn't have been. I wouldn't be a U2 sensation.
That's true.
Today.
You know how to raise the ratings.
Finebaum brought the spice and the swag.
There you go.
Once he put the turnover chain on.
Thanks,
All
Paul.
right, Paul, we appreciate it. We'll see what happens tonight.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, we made it today, too. It's
We
a
did.
miracle.
Holiday cash. Here's where to get it. MyBookie.ag is the place to score serious cash on your sports predictions. There are a lot of football, basketball, and hockey games you can score big every day. Man up, play like the pros. The money line, side, or total, MyBookie.ag is your hookup for all your betting with all the lines and super fast payouts. Join now and MyBookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code MM50 to activate the order. Don't leave the money on the table. MyBookie.ag, promo code MM50, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We are delighted now to be joined by Rob Manfred, the Commissioner of Baseball, as he joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Rob, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
We're doing well.
Congratulations to you on your new show.
Thank you, sir.
2 days in. We're not kicked off yet, so we're good.
There you go.
We took the over, and so far it's working. So we'll see what happens. And Rob, that actually leads us seamlessly into the first question. Speaking of over, Major League Baseball games last year, despite some efforts to speed up the game, average time of 3 hours in 2016, 3 hours and 6 minutes in 2017. How are we going to try and continue to pare down the average time of the game?
Well, look, I think that last year for us really makes the point that you need systemic rule changes that keep the players focused on the need to move the game along. The year before, we had some rule changes my first year, and the time actually went down. We've slipped backwards the last 2 years, and we're really intent on negotiating some changes with the MLBPA that will keep this pace of game topic in the front of everybody's mind in 2018.
I know the one thing talked about was that pitch clock, the 20-second pitch clock. I actually got to see in person here at the Dunkin' Donuts field here.
Yeah, with the yard goats.
Yeah, the yard goats, they have it up there and kind of see it in action. And I know that's something I think you were talking about you can implement if there is no agreement. So where are we with that between you wanting to do that, where the union is, and the possibility of you kind of just putting it in there? Well,
look, I am intent on trying to get a negotiated resolution of this with the MLBPA. It's the best outcome for everybody. We've had good talks with them. I'm hopeful that we are going to get something worked out. I think the most important point is in those conversations, I think our players realize that we need to do something on this topic in order to keep the pace up. And I'm hopeful we'll get a constructive resolution, and I'm really hopeful that it involves the clock. I'm a fan of the clock.
Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Baseball, joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line on Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. You know, it's interesting you say that, Rob, because George Springer did the Bristol Car Wash, as we like to call it, a few weeks ago, came back and did all the shows. And the idea of the pitch clock was brought up to him. And he said, you know, for me, as a batter, if you're facing a guy like Clayton Kershaw, who, by the way, pitched that gem in the Game 1 of the World Series, 2 hours and 28 minutes, he said, when a guy like Kershaw is dealing, I need that time to step out of the box so I can try and figure out what this guy is trying to do and get him off his rhythm. So he was, as a hitter, thinking, I really am not in favor of this.
Well, look, I think that it would. There's no question that the clock would alter routines in certain situations. I think the postseason is probably the place where it's most difficult, and obviously George was talking about a postseason situation. But the fact of the matter is that, over half of our players have played with a clock in the minor leagues, and they played in the minor leagues successfully enough to make it to the major leagues. So these great athletes are going to adjust. They'll get used to it. They'll figure out the new pace, and I think it'll be better for our fans in the long run.
As far as some other kind of off the field, with Derek Jeter being the part owner of the Miami Marlins and the possibility of trading Stanton away, you had recently said that the fans should be understanding if the team's new owners want to do that. That's a tough call. The one big draw there. What were your thoughts there in saying that and why they should be understanding?
Well, look, I think that when you buy a franchise, you hope that the new owner just gets a little period of grace from the fans in order to figure out how they're going to put a winning product on the field. And, obviously Stanton's a huge star. He's a huge part of that franchise on the one hand. On the other hand, the franchise hasn't drawn well. And, they need to figure out how to put a winning product on the field, whether that's with him or without him. And I'm just trying to my thought was to try to give those new owners just a little period of grace from the fans in order to put their own strategy in place.
And that certainly makes all the sense in the world if you think about it from that perspective. Rob Manfred with us, the commissioner of Major League Baseball. We've got this big name coming out of Japan, Shohei Ohtani. What do you make of the new agreement between Major League Baseball, the Players Union, and the Japanese Commissioner's Office posting this new system that could allow a star outfielder and pitcher like him to be put up for bid?
Well, look, we've had a protocol agreement with the Japanese that allow players to move for a number of years. Really, the only big change in the new agreement is the size of the posting fee that's paid to the Japanese club. I think in general, the prior agreement and the new one have served both NPB and Major League Baseball well in that it has allowed stars from Japan to come here, which is great for our game. We want the best players in the world here. But it's also allowed Japanese baseball to be a really important domestic product. The outflow hasn't been so significant that it's damaged the domestic product. And I think that's important in terms of the development of our game around the world.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, Ohtani and his agent feel pretty good about their bargaining position. They have sent a letter to all 30 teams asking why they deserve to have him on their team. Hey, come out strong, I guess, right, Rob?
Well, he is not my job to explain what people are thinking, but it really is a unique situation because he came out at an age of younger than 25. He's not treated as a foreign professional. There are limits to what he can earn. Number one. And number two, obviously, he's a unique player, the desire to play both ways. And so I think these non-monetary terms are going to be really important in this negotiation and probably accounts for the letter.
One of the other things that came up during the season when that, unfortunately, when that little girl was hit with the foul ball and the netting going down the first and third base line, we know after that happened, there were some stadiums and teams that did it on their own. Where is all of that in talks as far as it being left up to the teams to do, how much you're getting involved and the league is getting involved in that?
Well, it was a significant topic of discussion in the owners' meeting that we had the second week in November down in Orlando. I think you're going to see very significant changes on the netting issue next year.
How much do you have to work with teams on that, or is that something you can impose on your own and tell them this is the new normal?
We can adopt a rule on it. We have been honestly the difficulty with the rule. With a single rule has been just working through the differences in designs in various stadiums. My original thought was that we should work it through club by club. It may be this winter that we go a little further just in an effort to make sure that we've moved things along adequately.
We were just talking about the Japanese player, and it leads me to John Coppolello, the former Braves general manager, who basically circumventing international signing rules from 2015 and 2017. You based him on the permanently ineligible list. Why that step for that infraction?
Well, I think that it was important to send a message about how seriously we take our rules and how seriously we take violations of those rules, particularly in the international market. First of all. Secondly, this was behavior that went on over a period of years and, very pervasive in terms of the activity. And then, I think last, unfortunately, John, while the Braves were completely cooperative in the investigative process, I can't say the same for John.
Rob Manfred with us, the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And, you're coming off back-to-back World Series that were just epic.
Yes,
Obviously,
they were.
What happened with the Cubs once every 108 years. Hopefully not for Cubs fans, it's every 108 years. But, the drought and seeing all that emotion in an incredible Game 7. And you had the same situation play out over 7 games between the Astros and the Dodgers. But it was dampered a little bit by the Astros' Yuli Gurriel and what he did. And you gave him the 5-game suspension for the gestures towards Yu Darvish of the Dodgers. There was some criticism that it's going to take place in the regular season, Rob, as opposed to starting in the World Series. Can you just once and for all again explain why you felt that was the right course of action?
Well, look, on discipline of this type, you're never going to satisfy everyone. I thought that the discipline was really significant. We'd had prior incidents of this type where it had been a game or two in the regular season. I thought it was an opportunity to significantly increase the level of discipline that would be associated with this type of conduct. I thought that was important. I also thought that Mr. Darvish's reaction to the incident was relevant. And, frankly, I didn't want to punish the rest of the Astros. I thought it was important to focus on the individual and his conduct, and I thought the best way to do that was to go with a longer suspension that took place during the regular season. And
along those lines, I thought it was pretty interesting the way Gurriel sort of tipped his cap to Darvish when he saw him again, and that was, I think that was sort of his way of saying, look, I owned it, I messed up, and I thought, obviously it wasn't a good thing that he did, but I think he found a good way to sort of take it back to you and show some respect for him. Well, look, our players, the way they conducted themselves, Mr. Darvish in particular, was fantastic. Everything he did de-escalated the situation. He's to be commended for that. And I do think that Yuri showed remorse in terms of the way he conducted himself, and that's important. I should also say there was a training component to that discipline, which I think is very, very important. We have a very diverse workforce. People coming from other countries, obviously, Yuri from Cuba. And I think it's important that when you have an incident like this, that you not overlook that training component. One last question, and we've asked you a lot of general questions, some specific questions. If you were asked, what is the State of the Union address, what's the State of the Union for baseball right now? We're thrilled about the state of baseball. I mean, I think I'd say 3 things to you, Mike. I mean, number one, a year ago we were talking about Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo. Now we're talking about Altuve and Correa. That's reflective of the fact that we just have a great wave of young players coming into the game. Secondly, we've been really fortunate. We've had 2 unbelievable World Series in a row. You think, how are you going to top a 108-year drought being broken? And, we did pretty well this year. And then last, and, in a lot of ways, one that gets overlooked, the only major sport, including the ones people talk about, lacrosse, soccer, that has had increases in youth participation in the last year has been baseball and softball. And that really bodes well for our future. Well, you can sign me up for another World Series like we've seen the
Absolutely.
last 2. I will take that right now, Rob. It has been it's going to make doing this job a little more difficult in October, but I will gladly suffer the sleep deprivation to see the kind of display we saw in the last 2 fall classics. Rob, thanks so much for being with us on the show. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Rob.
It's great to talk to both of you, and good luck, huh?
Thank you.
We're going to need it,
right.
that's for sure. Thanks, Rob.
Bye.
By the way, that new 30 for 30 podcast coming up about lights in Wrigleyville.
Yes, yeah.
Now, that's something you and I remember.
Without
right?
a doubt. Without a doubt.
You never played night games at Wrigley
You
for
did.
all those years.
One of the best places to ever for day drinking.
Absolutely. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Are you kidding me?
Bada, swing.
Awesome.
Battery.
Swing.
So that part of it, that I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that sort of segues to what we just had with Commissioner Manfred. I think that, Rob has done a great job of trying to transition baseball because baseball more than any other sport is the unwritten rules.
Holy smokes.
The way it's always been done.
Yes.
And I think he's done a really good job of trying to nudge people forward into, yes, we appreciate our traditions. We love our traditions, but at the same point, we need to find ways to grow the game and continue to make it more interesting to fans.
Because the one thing you do, he's right. Players adjust. We all adjusted. Yeah, baseball, old-time fans adjusted to the wild card, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe some still don't like it, but I think for the most part, most people do like it. So what's next? You try not to make major changes, but do you make minor changes? Do you get the pitch clock again? The one great thing about baseball that I love is, if you're a minor leaguer, everything gets tested on you.
Right.
They can do anything there. So that just like in football and pro football, it's the preseason. You can try things to see how they work. In baseball, it's throw it in the minor league. Well, we want to try. Put it in the minor league. Put it in the double A. Put it in triple A. Put it in single A. Put it in the minor league. Try it there so you have a testing spot for it, whether it's a pitch clock, which is being used there and being used internationally, whether it's how many trips to the mound, how many relievers in an inning, whatever direction they decide to go. What will get interesting, because we talk a lot about relationships of union and leagues, we know it's not good in the NFL, we know it's really good in the NBA, is the power of Rob Manfred should he want to do something and the union doesn't agree. Rob can kind of say, tough, I'm going to implement these things and we're going to do them. So I'm sure he doesn't want to. You want to obviously have a good relationship, get along and agree on things, but he can implement if the union doesn't agree with some of these things. So will it get to that point?
At the end of the day, he can be Commissioner Bigfoot if he wants to.
Right.
But it's always better to try and get this thing going and get everybody on the same page, and we'll see if that happens with the play clock. Keep wanting to call it the shot clock.
Yeah, I know.
With the play clock.
The pitch clock,
and the netting as well. So we'll see how that goes forward. Okay, so that's for the season coming up.
Right.
The most important thing or the most interesting thing you're looking for tonight when the top four, the penultimate top four in college football are revealed.
Not going to lie, I don't think there's a... horrible to say for people. We want people to tune into it. Yeah. I think we know what the top four are. And then the question after that.
Is it where Alabama is maybe in relation to that top five?
It's going to be Bama, Ohio State, Georgia. Of those three, which are 5 and 6.
Because if Georgia wins, they're getting in.
But that's the thing about it. So no matter where Georgia is, if Georgia beats Auburn, they're in.
Right.
So Alabama and Ohio State, they have to wait. Because this four, what the four is going to be, and I think the order will probably be Clemson, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Auburn. I think that will, and again, if it's not, it's going to be those four. And the bottom line is if those four win, they're in. There's no more discussion. They're in. Yeah. So if not, then it's if Ohio State wins, will they be able to jump over Alabama or get in instead of Alabama? So I don't think the first 7 here, which I think we know the teams, is all that important because of who controls their destiny and who has to wait to see if something happens.
I can't imagine Bama being anywhere but 5. Yeah, I just can't imagine them being anywhere
I agree.
but 5.
Paul said that. Finebaum said that as well. 5 at the highest, 6 at the lowest, however you want to go down that road. Yes. I do think it will be Georgia and Alabama at 5 and 6 with Ohio State at 7. But Ohio State still has a shot to get in.
All right, brother, we'll find out when we do this tomorrow on Golic and Wingo. Coming up tomorrow, we'll also have Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney, Kirk Herbstreit, and John Gruden will join us. So good, strong lineup. Thanks for being with us for day 2, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 3.
See ya.